Hello, and welcome to my cellar. Not too sure when you'll see this. I'm having a little trouble getting these uploaded. The other two I did just a few minutes ago, but I hope to have it up soon. I'm taping it, or filming it, shortly after midnight on Saturday the 25th. First thing I want to do is a big shout out to Tom Tullis, Fat Dragon Games, and the Humble Bundle people. Tom donated, from the looks of it, a good chunk of his stock, his programs for his 3D prints, etc., paper stuff as well. And Humble Bundle put it together, and they raised a little over $251,000 for direct relief, which is helping get the PPE to the people that need it. Way to go, Tom. It's really something when you basically say, okay, I'll just forego making any money on all these products this year. But you did it for such a great reason. And it will be remembered. Comment from last week. Jim just sitting there with Strider's Ranger's sword casually leaning on a wall. Well, Jim's not here to verify whether it is, but how else would a sword lean on a wall except casually, unless it was an animated sword, in which case you'd want to lock it in a steel box somewhere. But I don't know, maybe it is a Strider sword. Jim has many strange things in his house, including a Gladius that I gave him that a friend of my son's ground down and put an edge on. So, you don't know what you're going to find in Jim's place. Okay, this is apparently a response to rhetorical questions I was putting out last week about 5e having intelligence as a dump stat. So, it seems that in the best traditions of min-maxing, this person says that he believes that 5e has the least amount of intelligence saving throws, meaning that the fewest amount of saving throws are against your intelligence. I find that kind of alarming, but okay. And he said there's many more in all the other sets. So, if that's the reason, and their pursuit of min-maxing, okay, I guess that makes a perverted kind of sense. Boy, all I know is if I was a DM, I'd have a lot of things you had to figure out. I would not say you couldn't do it. I would just make it really hard for dumb PCs. But that's just me, and some people say I'm not nice. Okay. Hi, Tim. Thanks for helping us. This is a long one. Helping us soldier on. My group of friends has been playing D&D and tabletop RPGs since elementary school. We're in our 30s now, but we can't shake the feeling that we are bad at role-playing. I'm not wearing my glasses. That's why I'm stammering here. Nowadays, we mostly play our own homebrew games with occasional indie games sprinkled in. Do you have any advice on building up player and DM confidence and also keeping role-playing games interesting in general? Thanks again. All the best to you and yours. Well, number one, if you're still playing together, you're not doing it wrong. Because the whole point of the game is to get together with other like-minded people and have fun. Diversion. Challenge your mind a little bit. That said, there's nothing wrong with homebrewed games. The only thing against homebrew games is that by their nature, not everybody knows all the rules, and it's not a good thing to learn a rule when you jump off the edge of the riverbank and don't know about the rule about crocodiles. That's bad. Um, but if you're having fun and you've been playing all these years, then you're not doing it wrong. If you want to mix it up, go back and go back to the roots. Roll up a bunch of first level characters and go back and remember what it was like to struggle. That's one way to do it. If you're the DM, do something bizarre, shake them up. I have written an adventure that may or may not ever see the light of day, in which the player characters are on they have a mission, a quest, if you will, and they all meet to get together to do it. The old people have called in favors hook. Here you are, meet each other, go, and they're given a mission that's stepped out. Do this. Then you have to find out this fact needs to be learned. To do that, you must go through this, which and so they had a path, a route. And when they went out the back door of the seedy tavern, they all were, swirly and dizzy and nauseous for a second. And I turned them all into mice. And as mice, they had the same mission, except scaled down. Where the amber fields of grain, where they had to go through the plains and the grain fields, they now had to go through the cornfield that had possums and snakes. And where they had to go around or through the dismal swamp, they had a rice paddy that was full of hedgehogs that demanded tribute to let them through. And then when they got through and got to the briar patch where the mouse colony that was under duress was located, they had to overcome the 3 rat guards, who were named after the 3 members of the rat patrol, and overcome the henchmen, who looked like, in the drawing I had done, suspiciously, and who was named Tuco. Looked a lot like, I'll think of his name in a minute. Anyway, he looked a lot like Eli Wallach. And then Eli Wallach had 2 big, dumb, stupid bodyguards that were these 2 enormous blind moles who were telepathic. And you think that doesn't make you think outside the box? Turn them into birds, turn them into, whatever. But go outside the box and remember how much fun it is. Try to figure out what it is you're doing and where you're doing it. That's one thing. Try a different system. Meaning a different game. You want to get back? Pass the hat around your buddies and buy a copy of Mutant Crawl Classics or Dungeon Crawl Classics. Dungeon Crawl Classics, because it really feels like old school, because you literally sit on a funnel. You literally sit down with a stack of characters already rolled up. Hi, I'm Bob. I have a stick. And whoever's still alive at the end of the funnel is your character that you take on the next adventure, because you're now level 1. And they don't have 147 levels, so being a level 1's significant. Mutant Crawl Classics. Go play post-apocalyptic with ray guns and robots and stuff. Stretch your imaginations. That's one good way to do it. Okay, another long one coming here. Never thought learning magic would include retrieving components from my arcane tutor's storage. This journey took several weeks to reach the vault, as it was called. It was a cavern well out of the way of many human establishments. Below the edge of a high cliff on a small cliffside, a small path used only by forest animals leads down into a niche. Behind a massive forest growth, inside an array of contents, all in natural environment, which includes rain-soaked moss, no less than a dozen different kinds of shrooms and various forms of insects in the howling mouth. After removing several heavy rocks, I found myself further inside the vault where stalactites drip droplets and stalagmite mounds, trapping pools of liquid, the cave sparkles, yada da da da. If not for the requirements of returning swiftly with the fresh components, I would have ventured deeper in. Well, I don't mean this as a criticism, but I say, golly, that seems harsh. I copped out on components. Had traveling apothecaries, herbalists, wise women that they would run across. Find a little of this, find a little of that. If it was something that was really, really exotic, well, they had to save their money up to get it or whatever. To send you off on a weeks-long journey, etc. Your tutor apparently must have had some sort of instantaneous travel, because who'd be 3 weeks away from their stash? But it does stress the importance of components. You gotta have the eye of newt and the toe of frog or whatever. Okay, a comment on my sartorial style. Like the Gary Con hat, but it's a little wrong to see out of your union hat, meaning my kepi. Well, I only wear my kepi when I'm doing Curmudgeon. I started it way back when, and so that's when I do it. So when I'm doing the other ones, I don't. And if I forgot last week, I'm not sure. Anyway, I didn't mean to. But thanks for noticing. All right, here's a really, really, really good, goes to the fundamental underpinnings of a campaign. Do you feel it's appropriate for traditionally evil monsters to be genetically evil? If that goblin child is evil at birth, and therefore the righteous paladin is playing their alignment properly by slitting the baby's throat? This is a question that we dealt with at TSR not long after I got there, and continued. It goes to the basic ethos of your campaign, and that is, what is intelligence? What is sapience? We're 98% the same genetic material as a bonobo, which is a subtype of chimp. And they're very, very smart, but they're nowhere near as intelligent as we are. And yes, they have an opposable thumb, all right, but, well, not quite as good as ours, but still, they're closest. It's a wild, what constitutes a wild animal? First off, you divide between predators and prey. Prey, for the most part, can be domesticated, given a steady time working with them or whatever. You can have a pet deer. You can have a pet turkey. Pet raccoon. Pet wolverine. Different story altogether. I don't care if you raise them from birth. Raise them from, oh, mommy got killed and I'm going to feed him with a bottle, and I don't care. There is always, and I've never read an animal behavioral scientist state otherwise. There was always a chance that feral behavior will snap back in a circumstance, in a stress situation, whatever. Years and years ago, shortly after I went out of the game industry for my long-time hiatus, I worked with a guy named Buford. Buford was a good old boy from Kentucky that claimed he had a pet raccoon. And several of us challenged that. So one Monday, there was Buford at the shop, this big wire cage with a raccoon in it. And I also noticed that Buford's arms had several scratches on them. And he claimed that there was a domesticated raccoon, but from the looks of his arms, that raccoon didn't do anything it didn't want to do. There's a reason that the states don't allow people to keep lions and tigers and bears. Don't care. Every lion isn't Elsa. And if you're too young to know that reference, look up Born Free, written by Joy Adamson, I believe. Yes, I watched the YouTube videos where somebody comes back to the large cat that they hand raised years ago, and the cat comes over and loves them and glad to see him and all that. Certainly. And it would react much the same way of a cat, a litter mate who was separated and then came back and they recognized each other. But by the same token, those two litter mates, if they had a little spat, if one of them wanted to sit down where the other one was already and turned around and lunged at him with that mouthful of great god-awful big teeth, the damage that they would inflict on their litter mate is nowhere near as awful as they would inflict on you if you triggered that same response. Wolves. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that's successfully kept a full-bred wolf and can say it was truly domesticated. Nobody's ever had a pet rhino. Anybody knows about outside of Dr. Doolittle. So, are they intrinsically evil when they're born? Well, we don't generally attribute good or evil to animals. I know we're dealing with monsters, somewhere in between, reality and whatever. So I would feel that if the paladin's okay with it, orcs are orcs. Nits breed lice. Okay. In the sense of evil and good, you're kind of off the hook morality-wise. It's not to say that there aren't the exceptions. Though I would say, just let's take ravens. I wonder how many, there are domesticated ravens. Pet ravens, if you will. But very few people don't keep them in a cage at night. And very few people are going to lean up and offer a kiss for fear of getting their eyeball poked out just because it's a natural bird response. So, nah, I don't have a problem killing. If they don't. Now, I'm not going to say they got to, and they're not shirking their duty if they don't. But bad's bad, evil's evil. Now, in today's light of conservation and rehabilitation of what we would consider predator or apex type animals, place out in Colorado that I try to support, the wild animal sanctuary. They have bears and lions and tigers and all that kind of stuff, and they rehab them. But there's none of them out there that anybody would want to climb in with. If somebody shoots a wolf because it's killing their sheep, and then they later find 4 wolf cubs, they may or may not feel compelled to turn the wolves in to the local animal, rescue, whatever. I guess that's an individual judgment. Okay. All right. Not all of these are real well-constructed sentences, though I'm always, usually able to figure out what it was people were saying. So bear with me on this. Okay. Comment 2, another nagging question. I don't remember what comment it was. It must have been last week. Players creating high-level 15-plus PCs and adventuring from that start point seems to be a thing over the last decade or so. But based on its design fundamentals, D&D appears to be a game where building low-level PCs and adventuring your way to high level is closer to the system's ideal. Granted, groups can D&D however they like, but skipping lower levels always felt like cheating the game, especially considering negotiating those lower levels took, in my opinion, a degree of player skill that informed players exactly what D&D playing was. Thoughts? Yeah, I think that's pretty perceptive. I've always said that the struggle is the fun. We always retired our players after somewhere around 10, 11, 12th level. We retired them and played other player characters and brought them up. I sympathize with the feeling that it's cheating. I would tend to agree. However, that said, if that's the way you want to play, I don't care. Start at 15th with your goal of becoming 85th. Okay? As long as you and your friends are having fun, it's not wrong. It's never wrong if you're having fun. Now, you might play the rules incorrectly, and you should when you find out, oh, we've been playing this rule wrong, particularly in board games or minis. But the same would hold true in RPGs. You should, unless you're completely non-rules as written, you should, change. Do it right. Now, in keeping with the preceding, starting high level and, getting around the struggle, I noticed that there's a minor swell of interest in an old discredited concept called spell points. Spell points completely abrogated all the fun and the reasoning behind the D&D Vancian magic system. Now, we didn't do music back then. None of us could carry a tune in a pail. But spell points were, you had a pool of points and how you spent them, it's spells. Well, number one, it's kind of silly if you already have to know a spell to be able to spend the points on it. That you have to. We always played that you didn't come when you made third level. You didn't get a new book of third level spells. In fact, we played that if you found a 5th level scroll, we would let players read higher levels. But if you saved that scroll until you were able to use it, then you could copy it into your book. And if you didn't have it in your book, you couldn't use it. And when I used to play with higher level pre-gens and more complex magic users, I used to just sit down, hand out the book with the spells that were available, and say, as far as I'm concerned, you got a 75% chance of knowing any given spell that you're capable of casting as to the level. I trust you. And I would hear guys, oh man, I really wanted to get that. So they were for the most part, I think they were playing fair. But I think spell points is a violation of the spirit of the game. But that's just my point. However, it goes along with the other conversations I've seen in social media recently about what good's a low-level magic user. He gets one spell, and then you got to spend your time protecting him. Yeah, that's right. But if you're in a group of guys that are going to be playing together for a while, and that first level magic user makes it up to 4th or 5th level, you're going to be real glad you had him along when he's lobbing fireballs or lightning bolts for you, or stinking clouds, or there's a lot of things that a 5th level magic user can do that really amps up a party's firepower and capability. All right. Okay. Couple of freebie. Well, a freebie. On Monday, there's going to be a free game released. It's in because of the shelter-in-place thing. Total War Shogun 2. They're giving away, for a week, they're giving away free downloads. So you ought to go check that out. I know I'm going to, because I'm familiar with the engine, and I've enjoyed it many, many years ago, so I imagine it's only better. Number 2. So hard to get a good read here without there we go. Jasmine coloring book by Darlene. It's not only neat pictures to color, but it's also interesting background story about the characters and her Jasmine, her ongoing Jasmine saga, and it has the card game and everything. I believe she's marked it down because people are bored and need something to do. So let's see, how do you get a hold of her? Oh, she has a website. Let me get my glasses here. She does have a website, and she has an email, so you can send her an email if you like. It's got some great pictures in it. I mean, if you've got younger kids that have learned how to color, they're going to love this. You can go to patreon.com/Darlene_artist, or her email is consciousartllc, all one word, CONSCIOUSARTLLC @gmail.com. So she's doing that. And the last thing I'd like to bring up, and I'm treading lightly here, but I'm wondering if it isn't a good idea for all the people that get burned every year. Is it time that we should start compiling a bad actors list or a wall of shame? Somewhere where Ken Whitman would be the first inductee. There was a miniatures company that changed its name from something miniatures to Miniature U, and they were doing the funny photography of your head, and they were going to they would put your head on a body of your choosing that they had, and so you had a resin cast figure of you. And they have almost 24 Better Business Bureau complaints now, and people are still waiting months. I don't know what the criteria would be. I would think that if you sent a benchmark of, X number of complaints that were, valid, well, then they would be notified that you're about to go up. And I don't know that this is something I want to do, but I really think we ought to compile a list so that new people to the hobby, as we are getting all the time, are not sucked in by the con men. And there's a bunch of them. Just a thought. It's not like I'm opening nominations or anything, but I'd like to hear what some of you have to say about it. Now, I'm not sure when this is going to get up, and I'm not sure what shape it's going to be in. I mean, as far as editing and that, because I'm having some issues with it already, trying to upload earlier. But in this time of shelter in place, play online, play with Zoom, play with D20, Roll20, whatever you're comfortable playing with. Be smart, be safe. Sneeze in your elbow, wash your hands a lot, don't touch your face. We'll get through this together. Dodada Gobi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. PSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Curmudgeon.